Here we go again. Then, after the disappointment of the T20 World Cup, a new era beckons. Rohit Sharma and Rahul Dravid have been stand in captain and coach, respectively, of the Indian team. They now take the job on a more permanent basis. And with a World Cup in less than a year in hand, perhaps every T20I game is important. India play a lot of them going into Australia 2022 and on ESPN Cricket for T20 timeout. We're going to be discussing it all with Robin Uthappa, whom I must welcome on our platform live for the first time. Robbie, we've had
Thank you,
quite
Rona.
quite a few months of cricket. Is the IPL final match winning innings still fresh in memory, or has so much happened after that?
We've moved past that, but really happy for that and very grateful for that. But life goes on, right? And I
Yeah,
came back and played a domestic tournament, caught an injury that was already there from the IPL semi-final, and then that got worse. So I'm back home and relaxing with my family at the moment and cheering for my Kerala team from home.
brilliant, brilliant. Well, we've got to put our eyes on this Indian team now. Whatever one's views on having a series 3 days after a World Cup final, and New Zealand would be as fatigued. You think in some ways India they've lost players left, right, and centre in the last 24 hours. But fair to say, Robbie, every series is important now as India look to find pieces of the puzzle to come together before Australia.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's a phase where, especially with a new captain and coach, they really want to get they want to get things going underway very quickly. They will want to try out different combinations and what suits them. They'll have an idea as to what kind of a team they want to play 11 months from now, but I think that they will try out a few of the pieces that they want to kind of figure out, and I think that that's what we'll kind of get to see and experience over the next 6 8 months. I think in about 6 months time we should have an idea of what the first 11 should be for that World Cup in Australia.
All right. Now, if I have to, before we get into and we must have followed the news ball by ball as it for you, India have won a toss. They would have loved to win a couple of tosses in the first part of the World Cup, but Rohit Sharma's done well on the toss. He's going to have a bowl first, which I'll come to in a bit. But if you were to think of the immediate area of concern, especially given a lot of key first team players have taken a well earned rest, and looking at the type of squad that was picked from what you saw in the World Cup, what are the first things you think this Indian team needs to invest in or look into this series?
I think very quickly they need to figure out a sixth bowler, or a bowler who can bat, honestly, and they need to figure out that piece of the puzzle as quickly as possible. And that's something that I think both Rohit and Rahul Bhai are quite aware of. And I think that will be the with for all intents and purposes, that will be their pursuit over the next few months to kind of figure out that sixth bowler, be it Hardik Pandya or be it Venkatesh Iyer or be it someone like Deepak Chahar who can donk the ball a little bit, who could possibly become an all-rounder. So they'll have to figure out one of these three guys, at least two out of three, honestly, to kind of play that all-rounder's position, because you'll need that sixth bowler in T20 cricket just to kind of cover up in case one bowler goes under the hammer.
And we do know that India are looking at Venkatesh Iyer perhaps to see if he's good enough at the highest level to do that job. Now, comes off what's a remarkable, let's say, half IPL season, transformed it for KKR. From what you've seen of him, do you think he's got the goods to succeed
You know
at the
what
highest
stands
level?
you know what stands out for me about him is his sense of confidence in himself, in his ability. For a guy 24, 25 to be that assured of his skills and that assured of his of what he can contribute to the team, I think is phenomenal. And also could be just new, just the generation that gap that I see. Perhaps maybe everyone at that age is that confident. But having said that, he's very self assured, which I really like. I think he's a very underrated bowler, Ronak.
Hmm.
That's something that I truly believe. I think he was underused and underutilized by the KKR in the IPL. Even in the final. The one over that he bowled for less than 5 or 6 runs, and then he wasn't utilized again, and which was quite surprising to me from a leadership perspective. But I think he backs himself a lot as a bowler, and
Hmm.
he's got a few uncanny kind of tricks up his sleeve, which I think he'll try to exploit, given the opportunity to be able to bowl in these games as well. And they would have to actually kind of look at not just him batting at number three, because that's what I assume he's going to be doing in today's game, but I think they'll have to look at the opportunity of him batting down the order as well as an all-rounder. So
Yeah,
to
I
kind
think
of figure out where he kind of figures out in that spot is going to be
very.
important for India.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting you say that because Rohit Sharma's comments going into this game was we'd want players to play the role they play in domestic cricket at the international level. And that seems to be a hot debate when it comes to the shift from franchise or domestic cricket to international cricket. Venkatesh Iyer as an opening bat, potentially batting somewhere in the middle. You said you want to see him bat at three, but would it be wise on India, prudent of them to actually invest in Venkatesh Iyer, the bowler, a bit more too? And how do you see that
Oh yeah.
possibly?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think we can definitely invest in him as a bowler who can bat. But having said that, I feel like he is someone they can use as a son of Jayasuriya that Sri Lanka used in the '96 World Cup or just earlier before that, right? They didn't really put a price on his beginning. They said, you know what, go and have fun, go out there and just smash the ball, score as many runs as possible, and then Sanath was also very handy with the ball as well. So in that sense, they could use him like that as well. So it could be one of those key pieces where he can be used as a floater or he could be used as a pinch hitter. But again, someone who can bowl. Say if India get off to a good start, he can come down at the finishers at a finisher's job and see how they kind of fit those pieces together. It's going to be interesting over the next few months to see how Rohit and Rahul Dravid actually use this time and see where they use these players. I think that's going to be very interesting. I do agree with Rohit that you got to use the players where they have been successful in domestic cricket. There's no point using them in another position because they do all this hard work and all this effort goes into getting a India call up. But if they don't get to play in the position that they have scored runs in and have been successful in, it's defeating the purpose, right? So that's a challenge that India will have as time goes on.
Mhm. I like that you make the reference to Sanat Jayasuriya. You were part of a KKR side, of course, that saw Sunil Narayan go up the order to try and just change things at the top, and it was successful. For as long as it lasted. India did something different after that one game. They sent Ishan Kishan to open. It triggered a huge debate on whether that was a massive tactical flaw, the kind of batting India has at the top. Do you think an Indian T20I side needs that change, or is that just not a change it can afford, given it's got players like Rohit, Rahul, who you don't want to be batting outside the top two?
No, you want Rohit and Rahul to continue to open. I wouldn't change them. They are a very settled opening pair and a successful one in that. And the kind of form that they are in, I think, is phenomenal, to be honest. And it's very rare to see players be in such form, especially the way Rahul's batting at the moment. Ronak, as in, I think he's in sensational form, and I wouldn't change that lineup honestly. Say in case I would use Venkatesh Iyer at number three, just in case India lose a wicket in the first 2 or 3 overs, right? If they don't lose a wicket in the first 6 or 7 overs and Rohit and Rahul continue to bat, then Virat comes in at number three. He just walks in at number three. But if in
Hmm.
case India lose a wicket in the first 3 or 4 or 5 overs, then you send Venkatesh Iyer to kind of make use of that power play and get the most out of that. That's the way that he could be used. As in, from the top of my head that I'm thinking right now, I think that's a beautiful way that he can be utilized and still use him as a bowler, right? Because he's a great option in that sense.
Yep, fair enough. Now, we were all wondering what India's 11 would look like. Would it have room for Ruturaj Gaikwad in hot form? Would it have room for Ishan Kishan and Rishabh Pant? As it turns out, Rohit Sharma's return welcomed Shreyas Iyer back into the 11 and Surya Kumar Yadav keeps his place. No room for Ishan Kishan, interestingly, Robbie. I'll just put up that team for you in a minute. But Pant
Mhm.
keeps his spot. We're wondering if he'd get a bit of a break after the World Cup. But India have decided to go with both Shreyas Iyer and Surya Kumar Yadav along with Venkatesh Iyer. Thoughts on that?
Well, I think Rahul Dravid would have wanted some of the main pieces to be a part of this lineup because they have a World Cup in 11 months, and he will have an eye on that as well, right? So he'd want, and I think Rishabh Pant is a very important piece of the puzzle for India's success in the next World Cup. So I think I'd spoken about this in the pre-match, this one as well, where I had shared about
Yeah.
what I think Rishabh Pant's role will be. And I think he's going, even though he's a youngster in the group, I think his role is going to be that of a senior member of the team, and he'll have to kind of capitalize and kind of hold on and kind of cement that finisher's role. And get as much
Hmm.
as time in the middle playing a finisher because India don't have a finisher outside of today Hardik Pandya, um, himself, Rishabh Pant, Dinesh Karthik, and I think just one more guy that
Yeah.
escapes my mind at the moment. But we don't have finishers, and we really want to kind of develop our finishers and have proper finishers that we can really depend on come the World Cup. So I think Rishabh
Yeah.
is getting that kind of middle time to get used to batting at number five and number six to finish games, whether India bats first or bats second. And I think that's going to be very vital to India's success in the World Cup that's going to come up.
Yeah, yeah. Shreyas Iyer was almost given that job when India went to New Zealand last year. It's a very good morning to Dan Vittori. I can understand it past 2 a.m. It's hard for Dan to keep on, but they're losing players left, right, and center. Dan, I was worried you were one of them. No Trent Bolt, no Williamson. Jameson wants to focus on the tests and whatnot. It's good to see you, though.
I was resting. I apologise. I'm I'm back now. No, I think it is. It's an interesting little set of three games for New Zealand. It's almost like
Yeah.
the planning. They didn't realise that New Zealand might make a World Cup final. So they've got to go straight from that into a series now. So look, I think New Zealand will be in a lot of ways just getting through this series, and they'll obviously rest some
Mm.
players. They've rested Williamson.
Yeah.
They've announced that Jameson as well. So it will be a chance for those guys who didn't play in that World Cup tournament to have an opportunity to impress for another World Cup that's not that far away, really.
I'm interesting. It's interesting you say that. Now we can all sympathise if New Zealand aren't up for this, right? And the kind of players that they have lost. But quite frankly, Dan, what can they actually look to take away from this sort of series? Given there would still be some boxes that are left to tick that they didn't go all the way in the World Cup, and that even in the group stages, you felt like New Zealand's best hadn't quite come together. So what can they take away in spite of so many first players missing from this series?
Yeah, well, usually after a World Cup, you start planning for the next one, and because it's a couple of years away, and you'll lose some players. But you'd be very surprised if New Zealand lost any players between now and the next one. So this one, I think, is all about individual performance, and it will be a chance for those players who didn't play in the World Cup to push for a place, I suppose, coming for a year or so away. But apart from that, it is hard to really see what New Zealand can take out of this series. They are potentially coming on the back of a lot of cricket, but so is a lot of teams around the world. And so I suppose they'll just use this as another opportunity to try and I suppose embellish how good a team they are, and that they've proven that time and time again. And a series in India, albeit against not a full strength Indian team, is still a huge challenge.
I'd like for both of you to weigh in on India's 11 now. And curiously, the omission of Ishan Kishan, who's red hot property T20 cricket, who almost jumped the queue and made himself worthy of a T20 World Cup selection. He doesn't find room in this 11. What's the role for Nishan Kishan Robbie now? As we go ahead, I thought he'd be a very tempting option with a leg spinner and a left arm spinner in New Zealand's 11, but he doesn't make this 11 today.
Well, he most certainly will be, but I think for the time being, he would be used as a replacement or a backup for Rishabh Pant, just in case anything happens to him. And I think India would wisely want to invest that time in Rishabh Pant to develop him as a finisher. And just in case, for instance, Surya Kumar gets injured or somebody else get injured, then they can use Ishan as the backup for them. So he it's a dynamic backup that you have, and I think it's a luxury that India will have over the next you know 12 to 18 months. So, and there's a lot of T20 cricket lined up for India over the next you know 10 months actually. So I think
Yes.
it's a great time to have him in the squad, travel with the squad, and then throw him in between so that he just gets some match time as well. But at the same time, make sure that he's used it as a dynamic backup for possibly the batters and the wicketkeeper.
Dan, we spoke at the end of India's campaign at that World Cup on certain players that you definitely want getting as many games as possible to get them, you could say, just ready for the next World Cup. Surya Kumar Yadav seemed to be one person unanimous on our panel at the time. Ishan Kishan, we thought, would make the 11, and the toss-up would be between Shreyas Iyer and Ruturaj Gaikwad, and for that other spot. As it turns out, Ishan Kishan doesn't find room in this. Is he one of those players that you'd want to play as much, or like Robbie mentions now, that his best role might just be to play second fiddle to Pant?
It's incredibly difficult. You almost look at probably the Venkatesh Iyer position as a chance for Shankish to play in. So,
Hmm.
like always, India have a wealth of choices, and sometimes that makes it difficult to try and fit everyone in, particularly coming off a recent IPL when we've seen people perform. And a lot of the time, in the past, India have always rewarded that form from the IPL, and they've tried to get players in pretty soon after to give them an opportunity to play to see if that form can carry on. So I think they'll know that Ishan Kishan is a quality player, and he has done well for India and his limited opportunities. So maybe it's more a case of them just keep having a look at other players, albeit with knowing that he is good enough to make the playing 11.
All right. Now, maybe we'll have more conversations on this when we see India bat a bit, but they're going to be bowling first. They won the toss in Jaipur. And now there's some curious selection calls in the bowling department that we'd like to run through too. We'll just bring up that squad again. Yuzvendra Chahal, such a big debate when he was left out of the T20 World Cup, found his form, funny enough, after the squad announcement and returned to this series, but doesn't return to the 11. They've gone for Akshar Patel and Ashwin, Robbie. I wonder what you make of that.
Some strange are the ways sometimes of Indian cricket and what happens within it. But as in for me, I thought UZ being in that 11 should have been a no-brainer. But Akshar's gotten the opportunity, and I think what is dealt, the cards that were dealt to Akshar at the World Cup were very unfair ones. You first put him in the squad, and then you unceremoniously kind of take him out of the squad, and then it leaves a bad taste in everyone's mouth, and that's what happened to Akshar. So I think something is done to make things right there. But Akshar is a very high quality player. I think he's a better bowler than a batter. I think he's still trying to develop himself as a batter, but he's definitely the replacement, a backup for Ravinder Jadeja. But I think Ravinder's batting skills have grown exponentially over the last couple of years, and somewhere Akshar hasn't been able to catch up with that. So having said that, it'll be a great opportunity for him to kind of put his hand up and say, you know what, I've improved on my skills as well. So it's a welcome opportunity for him. And I think personally he should take full use of it and try to make the most of this opportunity that comes in this series. Given that he's playing this game, I reckon he'd play the next one at least.
Okay, Dan, you spent a lot of time with Yuzi Chahal, and you'd think, he would have been heartbroken at not making the World Cup squad, but he came back for this. He's not making the 11, though, curiously.
Yeah, well, look, I think at the time the decision was probably right to leave him out of the World Cup squad, just with how the other bowlers were performing. But then the Chahal that we saw during the IPL was the Chahal that they all know, and he was back to bowling the style that had made him so successful. And I thought he was gone just slightly quicker, and he was trying to spin the ball and attack the stumps, whereas in the past he'd got caught up a little bit in bowling incredibly slow and chasing wickets with the wide leggy to the right-handers, and it got him in trouble a little bit. So I thought he deserved the opportunity to come back in after being left out. But I suppose, like we talked about with other players, of Venkatesh Iyer, who's been rewarded for his IPL form, to give him a chance. I think it's sad not to see Chahal being given the same opportunity, because we know what Ashwin can do. Is he going to be in a starting 11 for a World Cup in a year's time? Who knows? But Chahal was bowling exceptionally well. He was giving Kohli a wicket-taking option throughout the IPL, and that's what you want from your leg spinners, as well as his ability to be consistent. And I think when Chahal is consistent, he's one of the best T20 leggies in the world.
Could there have been a case, Robbie, for 3 spinners and 2 seamers and still room for Chahal, or would you not recommend this time of year due possibly playing a factor?
No, I reckon to test out that all-rounder is more important than trying to fit in UZ at the moment. I think the fact that we really struggled for that 6th bowler even in this World Cup that just got by. I think it's important for us to kind of fill that piece of the puzzle at the moment. I think that's critical for us and going to be critical for our success in our pursuit of that in the next World Cup. So I think what's more important right now is that 6th bowler.
Yeah. Does it somewhere concern you, Dan, when you look at India's rich reserves, that the fact still remains that a lot of their batters don't bowl, a lot of their bowlers don't bat? In some cases, does that tilt the scales in favor of players like an Akshar Patel, maybe Ashwin, who of course is not known for his batting in the shortest format, but is that still a concern from all the options that they have, that the batters don't do one job and the bowlers don't do the other?
Well, I think it does, because you look at every successful T20 team and the balance that's provided from those type of players. And we've talked about Chennai for a long time. We've talked about Mumbai for a long time, how the luxuries that the Pandya brothers offer, and Jadeja for Chennai, etc. And it just makes selection so easy, and you don't have to fit players around them. You can just select your best team at every possible occasion. And that's where you want the the Hardik Pandya, obviously, and Axar Patel to a lesser degree, afford you those opportunities. And I think Axar is good enough to be a number 6, number 7 batsman and offer those luxuries to an Indian team. So I think that's why he will get the opportunity, but I also think he's very deserving of it.
Fair enough. I also thought, looking at this squad, Robbie, that they'll have to make a call between either Bhuvneshwar Kumar or Deepak Chahar, and maybe have Siraj certainly walk into this team with the way he performed in the IPL, and toss up between Harshal Patel and Avesh Khan. Curiously, they've gone Bhuvi, Deepak Chahar, and Siraj. What do you make of India's three choices for seamers?
Well, I think probably the thought process is to kind of, because both are swing bowlers, both Bhuvi and Deepak are swing bowlers, so kind of see how they match up on the pitch, because they're gonna have to use one option in Australia. Probably won't be able to have, they won't have the luxury to be able to use both. But both of them are in, and Deepak has been in pretty good form. Having said that, Bhuvi, I think, is just kind of finding his way back from his injury, and I think he needs that time in the middle to kind of find his rhythm and find his extra yards that actually make a huge difference to a bowler like him. So I think it's good to, and it's a good choice to play both and see how they match up against each other as well, because it's the same skill essentially. But for Siraj, I think it's a great opportunity. Someone like him to be able to get as much match time as possible will be a very important probably option for us going into the World Cup. And I think, what we actually as a board or as a country kind of have to struggle with is the fact that um, there's so much, we have the luxury of choice and so many people there, and that can actually cause some confusion eventually. And you're just hoping that the minds of Rahul Dravid and Rohit Sharma can kind of figure out the right solutions for us in time for the World Cup.
Yeah, fair enough. You think if these sort of bilateral series are important for some players, would Bhuvneshwar Kumar be one of them, Dan? In given the lack of form in the IPL, dropped after one game in the World Cup, is this a big series for him?
I think it is. I think you saw the comments around him leading into the World Cup, where Kohli backed him and said that he was an important part of the team, and then obviously left him out after one game. So, look, I think I think I wouldn't say you're on your sort of final chance, but I think it is an important series for Bhuvaneshwar, because there is I suppose, a glut of Indian fast bowlers coming through. It's nice to see Siraj being rewarded for his performances in the IPL. So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Bhuvanesh Kumar at his best. Then it's going to take some time for him to get back into that full strength Indian team.
Robbie, same question to you. Maybe I must preface this by saying India's bowlers necessarily didn't let them down in the World Cup. It was more the batting. But from what you've seen
Yeah.
of Bhuvi, the bowler, the likes of Avesh Khan, Harshal Patel, once Bumrah and Shami are also fit and back, they'll all be knocking on the door. Is this a big series for Bhuvi, you think?
I definitely think it is. I think he realizes it as well. I think he's possibly aware of it as well, and I think that's why he as a person will want to make the most of it. My only concern is the fact that he's lost a few yards of pace, and I really hope that he'll be able to find that rhythm, and because that makes him so much more effective as a bowler. That 3-4 yards of pace make his swing that much more deadly when he bowls at the new ball. So I really hope he finds that few yards to actually make this count, because he at the top of his game is a very dangerous guy to have in our side. So, and he will straight away walk into our side because he's an incredibly good death bowler as well. When his confidence is right up there.
All right. Well, we'll see how he goes. There'll be a close eye on him. Now, we haven't woken Dan Vettori up at 2:30 in Auckland just to talk about the Indian team. So he's going to spend a few minutes right now to just run through the New Zealand lineup, which, quite frankly, I deliberately didn't give a lot of time to, because honestly, it's okay if even New Zealand lose the series 3-0. I don't think anyone's going to be going after them back home, Dan. But they've had to make some last-minute calls. Kyle Jamieson says he wants to focus on the test. So too Kane Williamson. In the end of it, it's a team that sees the return of Lockie Ferguson, a place for Rachit Ravindra. I wonder where you see him going. He's not got a great T20 record, though he's made a great start to his test career. And other than that, interesting calls see Mark Chapman back into this side and Todd Astle as the leg spinner. No ish sorry. Dan, take us through that team.
Well, yeah, I think the case of Chapman and I suppose Todd Astle is the fact that they didn't play throughout the World Cup, so they were automatically going to get an opportunity in this series, and you could probably say that for Seifert as well coming back into it. I'm intrigued how Lockie Ferguson has come back from this calf injury. I thought that was something that would rule him out for potentially a long time, but they'll be excited to have him back into the team because they really do see him as their strike bowler throughout T20s. Even with Bolt and Southey and Milne all full strength, they still love Lockie Ferguson and what he brings with that pace and something different to what they've had. So he's a big plus. I think the Jameson one's probably the biggest surprise because he was selected on the back of not a lot of T20 form. He played a little bit of IPL and then left out RCB. And then obviously was leapfrogged in the pecking order by Adam Milne as soon as he came into the team. So, look, I thought he would have had an opportunity here. They'll still want to look at him for the Australian tournament where he could be really influential as a big, tall, fast bowler at the top of the order. So I think they'll be very happy with how those fast bowlers went through the World Cup. So maybe they just thought this is an opportunity for Ferguson to come back in. Milne's still waiting there, and then let's prepare Jameson for the Test matches where he has been amazing. And for the sake of the 3 T20s, maybe they just considered the fact that it's more beneficial for him to get ready for those Test matches.
You think Jameson just thought the spot I'm competing with is Tim Southee's? Now that he's captain, I might as well just prepare for the tests.
Well, I think Tim was lining up a rest before Kane got one before him. So look, Tim's got to play all the 3, and then he's got to go and play the Test matches afterwards. So there may be a few guys battling for that rest come the third T20.
All right. Well, let's take a break, shall we? Now watch what India do in their first 20 overs after the World Cup on this new era by Rohit Sharma and Rahul Dravid, and pick up the chat with Robbie Uthappa and Dan Vettori. Before I leave you, though, let's get a good score this time of year. Jaipur, Robin Uthappa, what's a good first inning score to get?
Jaipur's generally a flat wicket, but I'm someone who has to watch at least a couple of overs before I feel like I know what the score's going to be. So I can't guess, but definitely over 160 or so is what I'm imagining.
All right, let's leave it there. Dan, Robbie, more from you in 20 overs time. Join us then on ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout.
Cheers.